How might rounds 7 through 9 of a 12-team half-point PPR mock draft go in 2022, and how can you use that to your advantage in your real draft to dominate your football season? It's time to break it down right here, right now, as we begin another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and when I'm not doing this, I'm writing about fantasy football and the NFL at large for sportingnews.com. I tell you every day, but come to site. We've got the rankings updated. I got my rookie rankings updated as well, specifically pulling out those first-year players that we're looking for value in our fantasy football leagues this season. So looking forward to that here and seeing what those guys can bring upside-wise. We also have mock draft analysis you can check out in written and video form. That's what we're doing here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We're going through a 12-team half-point PPR mock draft here. We've created 12 teams. We've gone through 6 rounds. We're going to tackle the strategies and picks that you're going to look at in rounds 7 through 9. So almost completing your starting lineup when you include a flex spot, defense kicker. Of course, defense kicker not going to be picked here in these rounds either, but the core of your fantasy football team should be there from rounds 5 and 6, and then now you're adding some depth, some pop, some upside here behind your starters, and maybe some options for your starters. So we'll break that down for you on today's show. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We're free and available to you on all platforms. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn and LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. All right, let's dive right in, and we will pick up where we left off. So that means we're in round 7. That means we're going back down here from team number 1, and we called our team number 1 Dome Improvement based on taking Jonathan Taylor, who plays in a dome in Indianapolis, with his name from Home Improvement, kind of. 2/3 of an actor from that show. So they are team number 1, and they're picking first here in round 7. So we've had our first 72 picks, and now we're up to pick 73 overall. So let's recap these teams as we go down here with each round here. So Jonathan Taylor was the first pick at RB1. They got J.K. Dobbins in the 4th round as RB2. Mark Andrews, luxury pick, is tight end 1 round 3. A.J. Brown, round there, right around the corner for them, that 2-3 turn. They get Michael Thomas, and now they're looking at their 3rd wide receiver. They added Patrick Mahomes there in round 5, so pretty good value there. I think this player is being a bit underdrafted. Some people want to avoid him completely because of the quarterback situation there in Cleveland, not a high-volume passing game, but he's clearly the number 1 receiver here. He has good chemistry with either quarterback there, Watson and Jacoby Brissett. He gets open, runs intermediate routes. It's Amari Cooper, so that's a pretty good value as a wide receiver 3, and it gives you some wide receiver 2 upside here. Michael Thomas is hurt, so that's a good, again, pick that we talk about. If you have some concerns at a certain position, you can go there. Now, they're going to have to still build some depth at running back as J.K. Dobbins. We're not sure about his status here, your 4th-round pick at RB2, so they're going to have to add some depth there, but you definitely need to add some depth at wide receiver. Why that you need to do that? You took Mark Andrews and Patrick Mahomes. So that's the opportunity cost here if you're team number 1, Dome Improvement, to go in that way. Our next team is Dalvin and the Chipmunks, and they feel really good about their early picks here. Dalvin Cook, round 1. Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill. Follow that as their top 2 wide receivers. You get George Kittle in round 4, A.J. Dillon, RB2 in round 5. Then you added Jerry Jeudy, tapping into the Russell Wilson offense there. So still need to add some depth, I think, at wide receiver here. But Jerry Jeudy option, they're going to opt to go quarterback. And the value that's been on the board here that needs to go off it is Tom Brady. You've had some other guys go. In the last round, we had Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow go off the board. Jalen Hurts around earlier. Someone was looking at his upside in round 5. Good time for Tom Brady. And what do we like about this one? Tom Brady, 7th round, pair him with Mike Evans. So season-long stacks are really underrated in fantasy football. A lot of my most successful teams have that combination. And it really works out well because, again, you double up on the points, especially when Brady and Evans can have those big games, and they're going to have plenty of those with touchdowns and big plays downfield. So yet another team stacking here at quarterback. So not a bad strategy at all in season long, as well as we look at DFS and daily slates. You can do that here. Our next team here, Steelers wheel. They took Najee Harris first at RB1. Debo Samuel and Keno Allen are their top two wide receivers. You have Elijah Mitchell, pretty good RB2. Lamar Jackson, so they also went quarterback in the 5th round there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is their wide receiver 3, so they need a little bit more depth at running back here just in case that 49ers situation changes. So we're going with Miles Sanders. Don't love this here right now, but look, we need to get some depth. He's a starting running back for the Eagles for the moment. Other guys are catching up on him, but getting for some depth, and this might change to Kenneth Gainwell in a lot of leagues here as we get closer, but Miles Sanders for now, RB3, adding some depth. I don't like him as an RB2. As an RB3, he's okay to see what you're going to get out of that Philadelphia backfield. So Eagles run continues there. With the next team, they are the $6 million men with it's not Steve Austin, but Austin Eckler, but getting paid $6 million a season. They got Leonard Fournette, RB2, round 2, Michael Pittman, good pick there, steal, wide receiver 1 in round 3, Brandon Cooks in round 2. Then they went straight down the line with wide receiver 3, DK Metcalf, round 5. Chase Edmonds, a little bit of depth there at running back. They're behind Eckler and Fournette in round 6. And now they go Dallas Goedert. So another Eagles player off the board here. Makes sense. You lost Dalton Schultz on the other side of this round in round 6. So look at Dallas Goedert, a good pickup here for this team. He could have a big year with Jalen Hurts. They're a good diversified team. So that's another way you can look at it. You have a Charger, a Buccaneer, a Colt, a Texan, a Seahawk, a Dolphin, and now you have an Eagle. So that's not a bad way to look at your team either. Diversify your portfolio that way by involving a lot of teams there that you look at on the clock. So another thing you can think about when building your team. So there's multiple ways to get to a championship, but you got to have the right mix of players no matter how you do it. Now, our next team, getting gritty with it, took Justin Jefferson first. They went with the big upside of Javonte Williams and then James Conner, solid RB2. Jalen Waddle and Allen Robinson, they're in rounds 4 and 5, rounding out the wide receiver starting core. Dalton Schultz, good value there. And they're going to go for a little bit of depth at running back here. Go to Rashad Penny. Again, I don't feel comfortable with him as an RB2. Ken Walker's going to be healthy at some point. You have Travis Homer in the dedicated receiving role. You got DJ Dallas. Penny can't stay healthy. But it's an RB3. Not bad, at least early value in the season in a flex play that you can get from Rashad Penny. That's a thing you're also thinking about. Who's going to help you early in the season? Who's going to help you later? Rashad Penny could be that asset early there for this team getting gritty with it, with Justin Jefferson being their top pick in round 1. And you're going to have to settle for some running back depth here, and that's what you're getting here later in the draft. Now, Elijah Moore is our next pick here in this team. The I am Henry the Great I Am got Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, Josh Jacobs, RB3, pretty good depth behind Henry and Barkley just in case of injury. And you get Joe Burrow here at quarterback. So they go with Elijah Moore. He's got a lot of upside for the Jets here. Good wide receiver 3 with some wide receiver 2 upside behind Higgins and McLaurin. So pretty good team building here so far. So this is a good team that went RB, didn't go any 0 RB. They started with 2 RBs. They were the only team in this mock draft of it. So it ended up with some pretty good value picks here. So something you got to think about when deciding positional runs early. All right, our next team is Cups when I'm gone, and he was gone in the first round. Then Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, Justin Herbert, a good pickup. I think he can be the top scorer in round 4 at quarterback. You have Darnell Mooney there stepping up as your wide receiver 2. You got Najee Harris as RB3. Now you look at Ezekiel Elliott, you're going to have to pay a little bit of premium on some handcuffs that are pretty valuable. But we know Tony Pollard is going to take off if something were to happen to Ezekiel Elliott. So this team doesn't want to take any chances, goes after a high-end handcuff. Elliott, just in case there's some bad vibes. Now you might think about Mark Ingram or Tony Jones later for Kamara, but Pollard, sometimes you got to pay a high price for a handcuff that you know is going to return RB1 if something were to happen. So they're set there, Elliott and Pollard, at least at one running back spot, except for the Cowboys bye. Next goes to CMC Scoring Factory. They had Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Josh Allen, Dave Montgomery, Gabriel Davis. So the Allen Davis stack, taking a chance on Antonio Gibson, who was falling out of favor, is the RB3. And you get Adam Thielen now as the wide receiver 3. So touchdown-dependent player at this point in his career, but scores a lot of touchdowns, still has good chemistry with Kirk Cousins, so good value for Thielen as a wide receiver 3 here in round 7. Our next team was the championship chase. They took Jamar Chase as wide receiver 1, DeAndre Swift, Kyle Pitts, Cam Akers, Rashad Bateman, Damian Pierce. This is a high upside team. So now they can get the value at quarterback. So they went for upside with a lot of young players. They got their tight end 1. They took care of their starting running backs, got a little depth at the flex. They're going to wait on their wide receiver 3. I'm going to reign Dak Prescott as QB1. Very good value here again, 7th round. So Brady, Prescott, that's where I'm inclined to avoid that Hurts, Burrow, Murray run and just wait until round 7 and really round 8, where there's still values of quarterback there that you can check out that we haven't mentioned. And there's 3 of them, and 2 of them will still go here in round 8 based on the needs of our teams. All right. Then we go to our team called Winning Mixon, and they had Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams, Breece Hall. So Mixon and Hall the backfield. Devontae Adams joined by DJ Moore at wide receiver 2. Jalen Hurts is QB1 in round 5. Jumped him a little bit. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire there is an RB3. So they need some wide receiver 3 help. They're going to go with Drake London. They like his role there. So first rookie wide receiver that we really want to target here. Clear role there with Kyle Pitts playing off him. So the team that before could have targeted him, but they already had Kyle Pitts. They don't want to invest too much in the Falcons passing game. That's the other thing is if you have doubts about a team, don't invest too much. So good diversity on this team as well. They get another team and Drake London, the first reality drafted wide receiver there as their wide receiver 3. All right, we have Nice Diggs here is the next team. They have Stephon Diggs, Nick Chubb, Travis Etienne, their 2 starting running backs. Cortland Sutton, wide receiver 2. Darren Waller, tight end 1. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 3 in round 6. They're going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I know there's a lot of buzz over Sky Moore, but his role might be slow to develop here. You still have Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling playing off Travis Kelce. So you look at some good Juju here that you look at for this team. There for some depth. I wouldn't want him as a starting player, but Juju could get some cheap touchdowns for you working the big slot for the Chiefs in round 7. So this next team is happy about that. And they didn't want to address wide receiver with another Chief because they have Travis Kelce, because they have Kelce FC. They have Travis Kelce, Aaron Jones, Deontay Johnson. They then added Mike Williams as wide receiver 2, Hollywood Brown as wide receiver 3, stacked him with Kyler Murray in round 6, and now they need some RB2 depth. So they really waited. That's the price you pay with Kelce and then taking a quarterback before. So now they're just going to hope that Ramondre Stevenson can return well as an RB2. So late pickup here, but they're comfortable with that because they're feeling good at the other positions here, especially with Kelce and Jones as the first 2 picks. All right, the turn we will get to, and we'll break down round 8 in our next segment here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We will look at the round 8, we'll look at round 9, then we'll take a peek at my wide receiver rankings. Again, we'll recap all the rankings for you on Friday and go in depth and look at the discrepancies and things that are notable from how our 5 experts here, Fantasy Football, did on the Locked On Network, ranking the players. So we'll look into that in depth. There, we told you at the top that this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, and an important message to share from them. As you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network beyond to the world's largest professional network of more than 810 million people. It's a great way to connect and find the right team for your job skill set and to really knock it out of the park with your next hire. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And right now, LinkedIn Jobs is calling you to action. They're going to help you find the right candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we will continue the show here in a moment on Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview starting August 31st, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team of experts of the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey NFL Insiders all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Starting August 31st, search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, it is time to continue looking at our mock draft. We're into round 8 now, so if you missed our analysis in rounds 1 through 3 and then 4 through 6, check out our previous shows. We will close our mock draft looking at rounds 10 through 12 and beyond that, which you're thinking strategies there on the clock. We're bringing it to you as we go along here. So we're back with Kelsey FC. This team name of the pun's tricky, but you want to have a good pun for your fantasy football team. But Kelsey FC, just stick with our RB2. So that means, okay, we're a little bit shaky with RB2. Let's get a little bit more depth at RB, shall we? And go with the turn. Michael Phelps off the wall, going up round 8, going with Devin Singletary there at RB3. So Stevenson, Singletary, diversifying your portfolio. I know Stevenson is getting the buzz there. James Cook is getting the buzz with the other AFC team with the Bills, but Singletary is maybe the guy that's going to get the key touches early. So a little bit of, again, diversity there, getting an upside guy, getting a guy for now. That's what you're trying to do with your RBs if you're going a little bit by committee there to fill out your RB2, which is not a bad way to go. That seems to have the most value there at any position. All right, so we need our team called Nice Digs needs a help at RB3. They have Nick Chubb and Travis Etienne. They like those combos. They might as well go for someone who would have high upside if Nick Chubb would go down. High end cuff, much like we had Tony Pollard go to the team that Ezekiel Elliott to cups when I'm gone. Nice Digs takes Kareem Hunt to back up Chubb and Etienne. And Hunt could have some standalone values, flex as well. You also have Juju from the last round. So some options there for this team. So now you're starting to have different ways to approach your flex positions. You're starting to look at some depth here. Still not reaching beyond the flex spot here in most teams. You're not doubling up on quarterbacks or tight ends, but that certainly is on the horizon as we get closer to round 9. So our next team needs a tight end, and the value that would be here in round 8 to follow up their straight down the line. So they ended up with RB3 flex with Clyde Edwards-Helaire in round 6. They got their wide receiver 3, Drake London, and there. So a winning mix gets TJ Hawkinson here is tight end 1. Pretty good value here in round 8. I think that's where you really should go. I like, again, Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert to go well ahead of him. Next pick here, Brandon Ayuk scares me a little bit, but this team needs a wide receiver 3 now. They got Chase, they got Bateman, so they're going to go with Ayuk, take a flyer. It's a run-heavy offense. You got Debo, George Kittle, Ayuk, and the buzz has been great, but so has been talking about Danny Gray and the other weapons here. So it's going to be spread around by Trey Lance, but for Ayuk as a value as wide receiver 3 in round 8, I'll take it. That's in the right line. Now, this guy's been taken. No Falcons running back has been taken so far. So this team has Christian McCaffrey. That's a CMC scoring factory. They have David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson. So they're going to get another back here in the mix. Cordarrelle Patterson, he's the guy early right now for the Falcons. I don't think he's going to last in that role. You have Tyler Algier that they can look at later, the rookie. They also have Damian Williams. But for now, Cordarrelle Patterson giving a little bit of extra depth here at running back. Give me a CMC as your first pick. Now, Cups, when I'm gone, needs some depth at wide receiver. This is a pretty good pick here that you're going to look at as a wide receiver 3. It's Devonta Smith. I think he's going to be much more comfortable as a 2 on his own team behind A.J. Brown. So you had A.J. Brown going round 3 at the beginning of it, 2-3 turn. And now you have Patterson and then Devonta Smith going as a pretty good value as a wide receiver 3 here. So not bad here as a team. Cups, when I'm gone, wanted to address running back depth a little bit, and they ended up with a decent wide receiver 3 here in round 8. So something to keep in mind, wide receiver 3, flex, RB2, some things that you can actually address pretty well in these middle rounds of your draft. All right, another quarterback needs to come off the board. So this is an interesting situation because the team getting gritty with it. You had Justin Jefferson, Javonte Williams. So they're going to go with Russell Wilson. Now, how do you approach that, having the quarterback and running back of the same team? Now, if you're confident the Broncos are going to be a good scoring team, and these two guys are going to provide most of the touchdowns, they're in good shape. Now, they're not going to run to a lot of low-scoring games. Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, these are going to be some shootouts in the AFC West. So it's okay if there's going to be enough points to go around running, and then Javonte has good value in the passing game. So it's okay to do that. It's not a traditional stack for season long, but if you really like the Broncos offense, and what Wilson can bring, and Wilson and Javonte playing off each other, then you have a good value here in round 8. So that's where I prefer to take Russell Wilson. I think I'd rather look at Prescott and Brady ahead of him in a lot of drafts here. So it's tough, but a lot of these guys have similar value as well. So no reason to reach on a quarterback, but this team wanted to get on that quarterback pretty soon. There's another quarterback that could go a little bit higher. We'll talk about him in round 9. Now, the next team with Eckler, Fournette, they have Chase Edmonds as their RB3, so they're going to go a little bit more depth, go for the upside now. So there's some guys early in the season, Eckler and Fournette, they can play as long as Edmonds is also healthy. He's valuable. So I'm going Ken Walker, going the upside at RB4. Could be a league winner. Rashad Penny goes down, Walker gets healthy. You're looking at a really high volume back there. Next team on the clock. This team's looking for some wide receiver depth. This guy might go a little bit higher in a lot of drafts. I think he should. So it's really interesting because Amon-Ra St. Brown was their wide receiver 3 for Steelers' wheel in round 6. Now, Hunter Renfrow has the same case. It was a dominant slot receiver, had to be the go-to guy by default. There was a tight end injury. All those things lined up. But what's happened with both these guys, another wide receivers come to town. In St. Brown's case, it's been DJ Chark. You have Jameson Williams. With Renfrow, you got a healthy Darren Waller, and now a big-time Devontae Adams in the mix. So Renfrow, I think, be careful of overdrafting him. Look, he finished really high at a high touchdown rate. I think there's going to be some regression there, but this is a very good value. If you're going to mix it up and give yourselves the options of wide receiver 4 or flex, I think Sanders, you can sit now. If you're worried about his role, they have Renfrow as a guy that you can start. With St. Brown, toggle them, flex, and wide receiver 3. So, again, expect him to go a little bit earlier in a lot of drafts, but for this particular draft, that's who the value was here. Now, handcuffing time, high-end handcuffs, we said Tony Pollard was off the board to the Ezekiel Elliott team in round number 7. Here in the second to last pick of round number 8, going back up, Alexander Madison. Now, he's not confirmed to be the bona fide handcuff. He was actually disappointing last year, filling in for Dalvin Cook with playing time. So keep that in mind, but keep track of your handcuffs and who is the number 2 guy most likely to get the touches. It's probably going to be a committee approach because these other backup backs can't do the things that the feature guy can do all around. So keep that in mind, but something to diversify your portfolio with. Again, handcuffs are a priority. You have to know when to get your handcuff. Don't let anyone else get them because then you're set at that position. And the team that has Cook is pretty good there. All right, we had Miles Sanders go in round 7 going down. Now in round 8 going back up, Kenneth Gainwell. So pretty good depth here. You got Jonathan Taylor, so almost 2 running backs there. But you got to worry here with J.K. Dobbins. So Kenneth Gainwell gives you a bit of diversity there. So Taylor, again, takes a little pressure off your RB2. So you can take the chance on Dobbins here, but make sure you get some value behind him in Kenneth Gainwell. So we will see what team number 1, that's Dome Improvement, does on the way down after getting their RB3 in Gainwell in our final segment here, Locked On Fantasy Football. We're almost here for week 1 real game action for the regular season, and we can't wait. BetOnline.net is the fast and easy way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events, the number 1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sporting wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use a mobile device to learn more about the trends and action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, it is time to close the show here and look at our round 9 picks, and we'll run down quickly my wide receiver rankings. So keeping you updated with that. We'll do an expansive look at the rankings here on the last show of the week on Friday. So stay tuned for that after our round 9 picks. All right, let's do that. Okay, so speaking of wide receivers, we're going to have a bit of a wide receiver run here to start round 9. Some depth. I don't like this guy as a wide receiver 3, but look at him as wide receiver 4, some depth behind A.J. Brown, Michael Thomas, and Amari Cooper. Yeah, Christian Kirk. He is the number 1 receiver. They paid a lot for him in Jacksonville. He's going to get a lot of looks and targets from Trevor Lawrence. So wide receiver 4, I'm not thrilled about it, but I don't want to force him into a starting spot. So I like Christian Kirk there. Another wide receiver, another guy that has some big play potential, but different situation with the quarterbacks changing. There in Seattle, Tyler Lockett. How far he's fallen. We had DK Metcalf going round 5. That was in line with his talent, and the quarterback situation here, Lockett has to be dropped all the way to wide receiver 4. So behind Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Jerry Jeudy, that's a comfortable spot to get Lockett as a wide receiver 4. All right, this team, our team 3, Steelers wheel is weighted for a tight end. The value here is Zach Ertz in round 9, so you should see all your starting tight ends kind of round out in this round. So you can wait and get some pretty good value tight ends. So just go for the right value at the right time at tight end. There's no rule about early or late. Think about the middle as well, but Ertz made sense for this team. Team number 3, Steelers wheel. All right, Trey Lance, it's time to go off the board. So this team waited at quarterback and they go for the upside Trey Lance. I would not be shocked if Trey Lance goes in your leagues, even ahead of Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson. We had him go behind just because some people are skeptical because it's first year starting. Trey Lance has a ton of upside. It's a great pick if it works out. A little bit of boom or bust here, but I'm feeling the boom a little bit more. So very good value if Trey Lance would fall into round 9 as one of the last starting QBs on the board. That's where I take him QB 10, QB 11, QB 9, somewhere in that range. Next player that goes off the board to the Justin Jefferson team, they got Justin Jefferson and Jalen Waddle, and they got Allen Robinson. They're happy about those 3 guys. So they can take a bit of a chance with their wide receiver 4. So they'll go with DeAndre Hopkins 6 games later. He might be available. So they have some depth with the flex with Rashad Penny. So they can wait a little bit on DeAndre Hopkins as wide receiver 4. A tight end I really like. Again, these are some good values, and this is a reminder that you can wait and wait and wait and get good tight ends here in relation to their round. And it's Cole Kmet. So you had all the other positions filled down the line here. You had the flex RB3. You had some RB4 there that you looked at with we looked at Melvin Gordon going between Devonta Smith and Russell Wilson in the last round. So you have Cole Kmet here as a tight end 1. I like his touchdown potential to shoot up. He can go nowhere but up with the 0 from last year, but I like his chemistry with Justin Fields playing into that. And young quarterback again, or in shaky quarterback, Pat Freiermuth. I really like him keeping it up with the touchdowns. I think Kmet is going to be more the yardage catch guy. Freiermuth is going to be more touchdown dependent, but the Steelers will score quite a bit in deep, playing off Najee Harris in the red zone. So I like him as a tight end 1 here. So Cole Kmet made a lot of sense here, and Pat Freiermuth rounds out kind of the look at the starting tight ends for me there. So that's where I kind of want to gauge that, and that's how I kind of would see them play out. We'll get into my tight end rankings tomorrow after we do our rounds 10 through 12 beyond analysis there for mock draft. We're almost done with this round 9. Al Lazard is a wide receiver 4 behind on this team, CeeDee Lamb and Gabriel Davis and Adam Thielen. So Lazard gives you a nice little floor there in the Aaron Rodgers offense. So he still should be the first Packers wide receiver taken. Next team also looking for a wide receiver 4. They have Jamar Chase in round 1, Rashad Bateman round 5, Brandon Ayuk just now in round 8. So get some depth with Robert Woods right now. So interesting that Robert Woods goes off the board ahead of Treylon Burks. It's going to be pretty close. Woods is the veteran. So again, you're looking at higher ceiling with Burks, with a higher floor here right now for Robert Woods. Chris Olave. So another rookie wide receiver goes off the board. So this team loves the young upside. So they had Drake London. They go Chris Olave. Similar situations there, playing off other targets that are intermediate on their teams in the NFC South. So Olave, a good value there in round 9. This team waited and waited for quarterback. Our team, number 11, they're nice digs. They're going to get Matthew Stafford. This shows you what depth there is. Now, the funny thing is QB1 we define as top 12 in scoring, but what is the scoring there in relation to each other is what you're looking at. So are you looking at guys that are massive separation, or is it going to be similar? And that's what you have to think about. So I think you can go Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, even Justin Fields. I think there's some guys that are going to produce what we're typically used to as QB1 numbers in the top 12, but it's going to expand a little bit. So something you keep in mind. You just can't say QB1, top 12. It's the actual scoring output you're going to get. I don't think there's going to be much of a difference here at the later rounds once you get there, so you can wait. So Stafford I really like here as a good value in round number 9, the penultimate pick there. And our final pick here, we had Dalvin Cook go early there with our second overall pick to Dalvin and the Chipmunks. Well, now we're up to Kelsey FC. They just took Devin Singletary in the last round. So what are they going to do? They're going to attach themselves to the Bills' explosive offense, continue to make sure they have options at RB2 because they waited until round 7 to Ramondre Stevenson to rest it. So there you have it. It is Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook, at RB4. It could be a league winner. Worst to handcuff to Devin Singletary. Could have some standalone flex value as well as a receiver. in that offense. So that's what we're thinking about when we're on round 7 through 9 on a 12-team half-point PPR mock draft, all the strategies that should go through your mind in constructing your team there through 9 rounds. So we'll address rounds 10, 11, 12 and get through what you should think about in rounds 13 through 17 as well. Our final look at the mock draft tomorrow before we get into the deeper dive on the rankings. Speaking of rankings, let's break down my wide receiver rankings. I'm in the camp of having Justin Jefferson over Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, however, is 2, Jamar Chase 3, Stephon Diggs 4. So I'm pretty in line with a lot of others here. I do like CeeDee Lamb and his upside as 5. Devontae Adams behind him at 6. Mike Evans going to keep coming through at 7 here. Love A.J. Brown at 8. Deebo Samuel still a big role at 9. A little lower in Tyreek Hill because of the Tua Tagovailoa situation. I still have him pretty high at 10. I'm going Keenan Allen for the consistency at 11. My 12 wide receiver, kind of surprising, jumping it, going for the upside, Michael Pittman Jr. I love him at 12. The chemistry with Matt Ryan. T. Higgins is number 13. Deontay Johnson, 14. Mike Williams of the Chargers, 15. DJ Moore of the Panthers, 16. I then like Terry McLaurin, going to be the number 1 there for the Commanders. Has Jahan Dotson deflect attention, 17 there at wide receiver. Where do I go? Number 18, Cortland Sutton. I think he's going up the charts a little bit for me there, but 18 with some upside there is Sutton. I like him over Jalen Waddle at 19. DK Metcalf falls to 20. Brandon Cooks at 21 for me. Chris Godwin coming back from the injury, 22. At 23, Marquise Hollywood Brown. I'm going to do a little bit lower on him. Amari Cooper at 24, and then Jerry Jeudy at 25. So that's how I rank the wide receivers here. Again, this is half-point PPR formats here, so keep that in mind when you're thinking about the analysis that's just presented to you here on Locked On Fantasy Football. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this is Vinnie Iyer. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. It's Fantasy Draft Week on the Locked On Podcast Network, so make Locked On Fantasy Football your daily listen, and don't forget about Locked On Dynasty as well. 20 years of experience here on the show, unique, intellectual, straight-to-the-point angle that you're going to get at Locked On Fantasy Football. Get ready for your fantasy football draft by listening to Locked On Fantasy Football here and Locked On Dynasty. And thanks again so much for listening. Again, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Good luck in your drafts as you continue to do them here this week. We'll have one more show on mock draft analysis tomorrow. Then it's all about rankings there to help you dominate your draft this weekend and beyond.